Hello friends and welcome back to The Press. It's Friday the 13th, match day of the FIFA Club World Cup, and it was going to be unlucky for some in the final set of group games, but not for me. I was lucky enough to watch the drama unfold with the lads. Julian Laurent, Cormac McCainch and Lias Bouzidi join me once again. Let's get you caught up with everything. In Orlando, Manchester City make it 3 wins in 3 and clinch top spot in Group G with a ruthless display against Juventus. We'll have a look at how their 5-2 win came about. In Washington, United Arab Emirates outfit Al-Ain finished 3rd in the group with a 2-1 win over Wydad AC of Morocco. Real Madrid in devastating form against RB Salzburg. 3-0 the score on a rainy night in Philadelphia, and they top Group H. And Saudi Arabia's Al-Hilal joined them in 2nd place after disposing of Pachuca of Mexico, a 2-0 win on the night in Nashville. So there's plenty of activity on social media. Make sure you get involved using the hashtag #ThePressCWC and lots of chat about Manchester City. We've got Pep Lijnders, of course, who is the new assistant coach with Pep. Very awkward having 2 Peps, I'd imagine. But the plan is starting to click. Although I still think when we see clips of him, he seems a little bit awkward in his new surroundings. I'm going to be honest. It's all syncing up perfectly, apparently, the master plan. We've also got one from Oracle MMA. Does this iteration of Man City represent a shift back to the more entertaining style of around 17-18, when Pep and City were lauded for changing the landscape of play rather than being blamed for it? That's the kind of people watching The Press. They know their tactical stuff. Great Maybe we're going to get into all of that. But we like skills here. Watch the ball boy. This is a bit of skill from Rayan Cherki, the Rayan Cherki effect. You see the guy with the ball boy with the black jacket in the background. There's a bit of absolutely disgusting skill about to happen. Jules, talk us through this and the reaction. We were all doing this, weren't we? Hands on head.
He's us, all us. This is ball boy, and we've seen Rayan Cherki doing so many nutmegs, but this one with the 2 feet like that is just beautiful, and
A lovely moment for our Cherki fanboys. Lias, you're enjoying that as well, weren't you?
On my feet, standing ovation. What a player, man.
Amazing. OK, so this was the situation in Group G before the games kicked off. And as you can see, all that was left to decide was who would top the group between Juventus and Manchester City, with the latter needing a win to finish ahead of their rivals. Juventus made 5 changes heading into this one. Meanwhile, Manchester City, in turn, made 7 changes as Rodri and Reinders started together for the first time.
All-European clash with Juventus taking on Manchester City. It's a clever ball, picking out Jeremy Doku! Scored by the Belgian! No mistake from City at the back, and in goes Tune Koopmeiners! Mateus Nunes. Oh, and it's into his own net by Kalulu! Wonderful weight on the pass. Haaland must score. It's the 300th goal of his club and country career. Haaland in front of Foden. It's surely going to be in. Phil Foden. Haaland was close. Back to him. Great save, Di Gregorio. Oh, but you can't legislate for that! Savinho! Vlahovic, finally a bit of service, finally a chance to show what he can do. Juve get their 2nd, it's surely too little too late. Manchester City, the only team with a 100% record through these group stages of the Club World Cup.
So, a fantastic performance. If you're a Man City fan, you are very, very excited. If you're a fan of another team in the competition, I think you're a little bit worried. That was a statement, wasn't it?
I think this entire tournament has been a statement, James, to be honest with you. I would argue they're probably the most impressive side over the first 3 games in the entire tournament. And it's just the ease in which everything is coming for them. They've played numerous different lineups, numerous different systems. And what's scary the most is Pep feels refreshed. The team feels refreshed. It feels new. It feels bright. I'm worried, not just for the Club World Cup. I'm a Man United fan. I'm terrified for the Premier League season as well, too. They look irresistible.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Pep. Pep was chatted to by Alex Aljo, and he had this to say.
You feel like you have your Manchester City back, because it hasn't been an easy year for the club, has it?
No, but listen, it's just one game. But I think today, more than anything else, the players felt again what you have to do to be a good team. That's no more secrets than that. I not necessarily to words, to images. They play, they knew it.
So you think they have the belief back after a performance like that?
It's the only way. The belief always come back from your performance, not for the past, for every day what you have to do.
Okay, Pep's feeling good there. Not worried about confidence. It comes from the competence, and we saw it today. There was so much to like about Manchester City's approach in their game against Juventus, including some really interesting tactical tweaks by Pep Guardiola, which I feel like we're saying every single time they play. But pretty much everyone in the squad has played, and we can show you the 3 lineups from the game right here. And every single time it's been quite different. Just to highlight certain players. The first game, Reinders on his own, and then O'Reilly and Lewis, who, thought of as fullbacks, stepping in, and a pretty much strikerless formation when it comes to that front line. That was in the first game. The changes were aplenty. In the second game, completely changed. Not as many kind of dribblers in this team. Gonzalez now as that single pivot, a 3 at the back, and we spoke about it was almost a 3-1-6 with the likes of Silva going onto that line and then stepping in here. Gundogan as well, and Echeverri, who got himself a goal, being part of it as well. But not just kind of out-and-out dribblers, and a different role for Nunes. And then today, we saw this. Which was another iteration that we're seeing here. And we've had so many discussions about what is the best Man City team, and we're still slightly none the wiser, to be honest. Rodri, of course, and Reinders playing together in this one, and they looked absolutely fantastic. But one player in particular really stood out from a tactical point of view, and his performance as well from the off. It was Doku, wasn't it, Cormac?
Yeah, this system felt like the most complete that we've seen from Guardiola in this competition. And the role of Doku is something slightly different than we've seen during the season. And he played in a lot more of a central position. So we can see it here. The 2 wingers are actually in a more inside position. And it's the fullbacks that are giving the width into Man City's attacks. And we saw Doku, usually you're used to seeing him on the flank and cutting inside, but he was picking up the ball more centrally and linking up play really well with his teammates. And then we see it here for the goal, catching the defender out of time and then finishing really nicely on the back post. But I think it's in these situations here where you can see a big difference that Guardiola is giving to Doku, where you're used to seeing him attack the byline and going down the line. He's cutting inside more frequently, and this allows him to link up play a lot more with his teammates. And it's a role I'm really interested to see how it develops this season, and if this is something that Guardiola is going to continue doing through the Premier League as well.
Yeah, I mean, just so many different options here. It was interesting to see Doku in that position because we know him as that player who stays out wide and kind of waits for the ball. Andros Townsend was the co-commentator on the game. Of course, he's been a fantastic winger in the Premier League, had an incredible career. So we wanted to ask him about Doku's new role. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I've got to say I really enjoyed watching Doku today and some of the positions he was picking up centrally, because as a winger myself, who like Doku is used to being on the touchline with chalk on his boots, to all of a sudden be in a central position is quite hard because you're only used to looking what's in front of you, but when you're centrally, you have to look from defenders coming from the left and the right, and it can be a tough adjustment. But it's definitely, once you get the hang of it, it's definitely a profitable position because you're driving at centre-backs who don't want to be driven at. You can then either slip in your striker or you're more central on goal to get your shots in, or similar to his goal in the first half, you're making runs in behind, but instead of making runs in behind and having to cross, you're now making runs in behind. You're either attacking a centre-back or you're 1v1 on the goalie. So in a numbers-based world we are, playing more centrally, you're more likely to get more goals, more assists and take your game to the next level.
Really lovely point from Andros there, because when we were watching the game, you're thinking, Doku, you kind of know what he's doing if he's out wide there, but when he sort of steps into those areas there with that burst of pace that he has, it's scary. You know, I had a lot of empathy for the defenders today for Juventus. That was one element of it. We're going to move on to the fullbacks now, Jules. What did you see there in this latest iteration of...
Well, one of the consequences of Doku playing more centrally and more inside was that to leave all that left channel to Ryan Ait-Nouri, of course, who arrived this summer from Wolverhampton, who is one of the best fullbacks or wing-backs, if you want, in the Premier League, but needs that space to run into. And you see him there, you've highlighted it on the tactic boards. He needs all that space, so Doku comes inside. There's nobody in front of Ait-Nouri to be able to exploit all that space in front of him. And we see it on the clip. It's very easy to see. We could have picked very, very different moments in the game where Ait-Nouri and Doku pick up those positions for Ait-Nouri to be able to go and bomb forward, basically. This is how he skins Vlahovic, which is not too difficult, I guess, from a defensive point of view for Vlahovic. But it's very interesting to see him very centrally there again this time, picking that pass for Doku that Cormac explained earlier on that first goal. But very much the relationship between Doku and Ait-Nouri was very interesting. Almost as interesting as the relationship on the other side between Mateus Nunes and Bernardo Silva. And again, we will see a lot of rotation. See that run there from Nunes into the half space on the right. That forces the own goal, quite ridiculous, from Pierre Kalulu, who was not French tonight. He was definitely not French tonight. But again, you see there, Bernardo Silva, Mateus Nunes, that running behind, finding him, and then an easy tap in for Haaland there. So again, those two fullbacks now, for a long time Pep Guardiola played with centre-backs at fullbacks, and this season it seems that he would have proper fullbacks there.
Yeah, like lots of rotations here, because again, if we look at that, at the tactics board and where they are, it's the profiles of these players as well. We've spoken about Doku, Savio on the other side here as well, but you've got Nunes and Ait-Nouri kind of offering that width and able to make those runs. But then when you've got these as your two guys who are kind of staying a little bit more centrally or in those half spaces, but of course being allowed to move wide and provide that kind of double width, I think it's pretty frightening. And I think this is a big thing that Pep's spotted here, is that he wants players that can drive past players, can dribble past players, or make deep runs as well. Reinders was doing it a lot throughout the game. I'm going to make a little change here. Haaland coming on for Marmoush. Now, we were having a, let's say, very close to heated debate. It was a high temperature, wasn't it, Liz? Let's be honest. Talk to me about Haaland and Marmoush, because you feel like Marmoush is an awful player and you'd never like to see him play again.
That is what you said.
You see what guys do when they're trying to make a point. I think Marmoush is a terrific player. I truly do. However, I have a bit of a doubt about whether he can lead the line by himself or whether he can kind of play out wide. I see him kind of as a second striker, maybe of a false nine. Terrific player, but leading the line.
You see him here, don't you? You see him here.
Yeah, in those areas, absolutely. Erling Haaland. I mean, we talk about the wealth of profiles that City have. They can rely on so many different players, but nobody's quite like Haaland, because he allows them to go from point A directly to point C. There's none of the point B in the middle. And we saw it a multitude of times during the games if you take a look at some of these clips. Ederson from deep going all the way down the line to Erling Haaland. We saw it throughout the Premier League season, and we've seen it here. And this right here just sums up the threat that is Erling Haaland. The gravity this guy possesses, the fear he strikes. Look at how he just drags players wherever he wants. I watched this guy live in the flesh a few times, and the fear that he kind of strikes in players simply because they know how fast he is running in a straight line down the pitch. It's ridiculous. He completely destabilizes defenses. And this right here is something maybe we didn't get to see the chance with Haaland numerous times at City, because he doesn't really have the space to do it. But at Dortmund, this was kind of his bread and butter. When you give this guy time to run at players, he's a force of nature, a freight train, and this on top of it. I mean, the first half we saw Mateus Nunes with a similar cross and no one was there. But with Erling Haaland, nobody attacks space and dominates the box better than this guy. And that's the reason why, at 24 years of age, 300 goals. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's
and we can see his goals right now in a lovely, beautiful graphic provided by DAZN's team. The career record there, it's outstanding in terms of what he's done. Absolutely ridiculous. And I think it's 361 goals and assists. Now, I know you don't like goals and assists
I like that you separated them. That's
good. But to get to the 300 goals, I mean, he is absolutely frightening. And as good as Marmoush was when we were kind of having that discussion and debate about is Marmoush good enough to kind of play as a central striker, he is, but we could see the levels between Haaland and Marmoush in terms of that physicality and the fear he strikes in the opposition, right? Yeah,
and I think Marmoush would be a great backup to Haaland, really. Yeah. And some games you can probably play them together, like even. Alvarez, in some games, Marmoush can be that number 9 with his qualities, which are different, like Lies explained, to Haaland's. But Haaland's look already ready for the season to come. And I think if I was a Premier League defender or Champions League defender, I would get very worried already.
Let's have a word on Juventus. Just, those 5 changes. Obviously, Man City made 7 changes, but those 5 changes were so crucial that they couldn't recover from that. And they've now lost a bit of momentum. I feel like that was maybe a mistake from Tudor.
Yeah, I feel like those 5 changes as well were all players that really struggled this season. So it felt like Tudor was trying to give these players an opportunity to gain some confidence, which I don't know why you'd do that against Man City, but it didn't really work. It kind of backfired because players like Koopmeiners, although he got a goal, was exposed a couple of times, especially defensively. Kalulu as well, we saw the mistake he made for the goal. And Vlahovic, even though he did get his goal, it was a consolation. So I'm not sure what the plan was. And now they've got a really tough game in the last 16 as well.
I don't understand it whatsoever, to be honest with you. This is a game, the first 2, you looked at it on paper, relatively straightforward. This was the game that, A, fans were probably flying in all over the place to watch. And to put out that kind of lineup, it didn't really make much sense to me.
It certainly didn't work. OK. Only pride at stake in this next one between Morocco's Wydad and Al-Ain of the UAE. Up until this game, the only team in the tournament that had failed to score a single goal.
Destination Washington, D.C. for Wydad against Ali Mufid. It's a good ball in. It's found the space as well for the shot. It is a dream start for Wydad in a game all about pride. Jasic, was he tripped? Penalty given. It will be Labert, and they've made it 1-1. On the slide was Palacios. Somehow comes out with it. They back to Kaku. You wait a whole tournament for a goal and 2 come along at once. Labert, that's a tap in. Oh, no, it's not. A man who has scored so many goals at home this season cannot find a way to get a Leeds third.
So here is Group G. Manchester City go through. They've won all 3 games, the only team in the competition to do exactly that. Great goal difference as well. They scored the most goals in the competition. 9 points there. Juventus, despite the defeat, finished in 2nd spot. Al-Ain in 3rd. And Wydad go away without a point, which was a slight shock. I think they were probably the favourites going into this game. It finished 2-1, but it could have been a lot more. Sorry to do this, but there are some glaring misses and a cheeky tantrum in there as well, which we can show you guys now. First of all, Bucheta, the left back. It's not that bad a miss, but the reaction to it is incredible. Laba was the next one. Jules, talk us through this.
I mean, for a goal scorer, it's a really good goal scorer, to be fair. To miss something like that, probably taking for granted that the tap-in would go in, and this is the worst angle because look at his body and his foot. It's just so wrong where he should have scored.
And this was quite near the end of the game. Rahimi with a really good chance to, to really put it to bed. And, yeah, just whacks it over the bar here. It had a bit of support on its way. So there could have been a few more goals there. And, yeah, we've kind of done them dirty a little bit there. Apologies there. But both teams, of course, out before a ball was kicked on this one. So, next up, we've got the situation going into the final Group H games. They were as follows. So the winners of Salzburg versus Real Madrid would top Group H, with the losers knocked out should Al-Hilal beat already eliminated Pachuca. A draw between Salzburg and Real Madrid and a win for Al-Hilal would leave all 3 sides level on points. Fortunately, we never got that far. So let's have a look at the RB Salzburg versus Real Madrid goals here. And it was a really good performance. Vinicius Jr. getting a goal and assist. Here's the goal. Here's the assist. Jules is going to break it down in much more detail in a second. Big changes afoot for this team. But it was a great performance, wasn't it, Jules?
Yeah, absolutely. From Real Madrid and Xabi Alonso, we looked into the tactics and what Xabi tried to do with this team. But from Vinicius up front, in a more central role, to Arda Güler in that midfield, to the back 3, and Chouameni's role in that back 3, it was really fantastic.
Okay. So, Real Madrid lined up in a similar 4-3-3 to their previous game against Pachuca. However, this game was a real chance to see how Alonso wants to play. Let's move on to Real Madrid here, because the 11 men, we've got the starting team from the first game here, and from the second game. And because Asensio had been sent off, we thought this would be the team because it was only that one change. But this is how they actually lined up. Very, very different. Alonso making his mark on this Real Madrid team. And it was very, very different to even those first 10 minutes of that second game of the competition for Real Madrid. Cormac, talk us through the shape on the tactics board here, because we're going to go work through the team here, because there's three players in particular we're going to chat about. We're going to chat about Tchouaméni, Güler, and Vinicius Jr., but we could talk about a few others as well. Let's start with Tchouaméni, because it was a three at the back, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And overall, this is the shape that brought him so much success with Bayer Leverkusen. And I think the role of Tchouaméni is really interesting to analyse, because we have seen him play in a deep position for Real Madrid, but not this deep, specifically out of possession as well. I was really caught off guard by how deep he was, and it was generally a back three. I really didn't expect to see it so early on in Xabi Alonso's time with Real Madrid.
He stayed put, didn't he?
Exactly. And we've got some clips both offensively and defensively. And I think offensively, it worked incredibly well. There was so much control in possession. His control in the centre of Tchouaméni allowed Rudiger and Haaland to push forward. They had so many line breakers in this team. It had the fullback stretching the pitch, so Trent was used a lot wider than you would see in the previous games and at Liverpool. But then I think defensively, maybe there are some changes you could make. Do you really think Real Madrid needed to be this defensive? I felt like at times Tchouaméni was not really doing much in this position, and Arda Güler was maybe exposed sometimes in this position as well, because Salzburg, even though it was a great performance for Real Madrid, there were moments where they did have control and were able to suffocate Real Madrid in their own half. So I think maybe Tchouaméni defensively, if he stepped a little bit further up the pitch, that might have been even more beneficial.
Yeah, because, you know, we're getting all these sort of tasters of these different setups. And Arda Güler, you spoke about there, kind of on that left-hand side. We wondered if that might occur. Even in those first 10 minutes, he did like to drop deep. Defensively, I am slightly concerned about that channel, because on the other side, if Bellingham stepped in, Arda Güler is just that little bit weaker over on this side. But his performance overall was really, really good. He had 84 touches and his pass completion was really strong. You enjoyed him, didn't you, Lee?
Yeah, I really did. I think Arda Güler is a very talented player, and I've been a little frustrated over the last year or so about Ancelotti's usage of him, but Xabi Alonso has come in and really kind of cited him as a player that he is counting on this season. We saw him early on the right wing, almost as a Rodrigo replacement, but he started playing in midfield the last few games. And I think he really adds a dimension to Real Madrid that maybe no one else other than Luka Modric, who's ironically leaving the club, kind of provides. So if we look at a few of the clips, you can see Arda Güler is just so comfortable at receiving the ball from deep, likes kind of going into that left-back position, similar to Modric to pick up the ball. But this kind of pass is in his locker, and I'm not sure a few other guys have. I love Bellingham, I love Valverde, but Arda just has a natural calmness on the ball, and I see the line-splitting passes as well, too, something that really adds. I think he had the most forward passes in this game. That pass right there is brilliant, leads to a Real Madrid chance, and Vinicius, I mean, is going to be a huge benefactor of it. So Arda Güler, it remains to be seen with the physical side to the game, because I definitely agree. There was a bit of a problem there. I do think Salzburg kind of exposed him at times. But if you can surround him with the right kind of profiles, athletes, physical figures, I think Arda's beneficiary on the ball will be huge for Real Madrid.
Yeah, 61 of his 66 passes were accurate. No key passes. And I think that kind of tells the story.
Yeah.
That he was the pass before the pass a lot of the time.
That, yeah.
And we're going to touch on the goals here in a second, Jules. But Vinicius Jr., a lot of talk about him, a lot of talk about his form in the last few months and his role within this team. This front three was really, really interesting in terms of how narrow they were, and it worked in Vinny Jr.'s favour, didn't it?
Absolutely. Forget about Vinny maybe on that left-hand side, close to the touchline, receiving the ball, facing the goal and going one-on-one with his defender, which is usually what we've seen for the last few seasons under Carlo Ancelotti. It was a team that attacked wide and get the ball quickly on the wings. Very different now under Xabi Alonso, certainly tonight, because as we will see on the clips, everything pretty much went through the middle of the pitch with Güler, with Bellingham, with Valverde, and then at the end of it, very often there was Vinicius Jr. or young Gonzalo Garcia on the last goal. But for Vinicius, it's a different style, different game, and we will see on the clip, especially on the first goal, you see his run, and you see the ball from Bellingham. This is a team that will always be very good in transition. They were very good before, regardless of how they play, but look at that.
Two passes. With the pass before the pass.
Exactly. Fran Garcia, and then Bellingham straight there for Vinicius. One-on-one with very young Joan Gaudu, and then he eats him alive for breakfast, really, and that's a great finish with his left foot. And this is what he's done all game long, stretching that defense. He's there, he's aware in the box. Great assist with that back heel, a la Guti, a la Benzema in the past as well. We've done similar assists too for Real Madrid, but I like it when he's more central. I know his game for a long time has been dribbling and being there with his pace, but again, this transition there, great through ball, This time it's for Gonzalo Garcia, who gets a little bit lucky against Gadu, and then a lovely finish from the 21-year-old to cap it off and win 3-0. But I think this also suit Vinicius and Bellingham and Gula and Valverde and Gonzalo or Mbappe when he's be back from his illness.
I mean, there's so many players we could have spoken about here. Bellingham was fantastic. Valverde was fantastic. Both being able to use the energy that they have all the time. We saw that with Valverde for his goal from Vinicius Junior's assist. Also, Trent, that little bit higher up, he looked like he was a bit more comfortable, had a lot more touches than we've seen previously as well. It looked really nice. One person highlighted there, Garcia. That man would probably not start. There's a guy called Mbappe who's quite good, and I think he might step in. But will the balance be lost a little bit if and when he steps into the team? Time will tell, but very, very impressive stuff from Alonso's Real Madrid side. OK, let's move on. It was an unchanged 11 for Al-Hilal as they faced a Pachuca side still seeking their first win of the competition. Let's have a look at the game here. And it was one that was sort of very calm second half, especially after the goal came. Salim Al-Dosari scoring the goal here. Lovely little flip there. Impressive stuff. And overall, this is in the last few minutes, wasn't it, Jules?
Yeah, Marcos Leonardo with a finish. He's somehow just onside and then goes round the keeper.
And in this one, 12 shots each. Oh, sorry, I've got my stats wrong here. I've lost it here. Don't worry about the stat. Al-Hilal were far, far better, weren't they? We can see in the group now, what's crucial here, all that really matters is the fact that they have qualified. Salzburg make their way out of the competition. Crucial win for them. But they were very comfortable throughout, despite it being 1-0 for the bulk of the game. And of course, Inzaghi has come in as the manager at Al-Hilal. And he's someone who obviously has got an incredible pedigree, did brilliant things at Inter Milan, Cormac, and we're starting to see some sort of gentle sprinklings of Inzaghi on this Al-Hilal side, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. His principles, we can start to see something. Even though he's not using his back three that was so effective at Inter, even with a back four, the rotations and the patterns are pretty similar. And there's a great clip that shows some of the rotations. And Inzaghi's a manager that invites the pressure high up the pitch. He wants to be closed down in his own box because then with these rotations, with all these passing combinations, all it takes is one successful pass over the top and then you're completely exposed. We saw this so many times at Inter, and I think it's going to be something that we'll see a lot with Al-Hilal in the later stages of the competition as well, that all it takes is one successful pass and then you find yourself in the box. They missed this chance here, but they had some great chances and some great goals in this game.
Yeah, Jules, talk us through this one. It's a lovely pass, isn't it?
Yeah, recovery and then making that turnover count straight away. Salim Al-Dosari, who's for me a very underrated player, the best Saudi player of the last few years with a lovely, lovely finish.
And I've got those stats. 4 big chances to none for Pachuca, 8 shots for Al-Hilal as well, despite having less possession than Pachuca. As I said, a really kind of quiet second half, but Al-Hilal dealt with it really, really well. Let's speak to someone who was there, our very own Aaron Paul. Aaron, thanks for joining us. What a night for Al-Hilal, and what has been the reaction then inside the stadium?
Hi, everyone. Naturally, it was a celebratory reaction. Look, this is a football club who consider themselves to be the premier football club in Asia, 70 trophies in 67 years. There is a certain level of arrogance about Al-Hilal Football Club, and that's sort of like the swagger that they roll with. Simone Inzaghi, he's come in, as you guys mentioned, you know, there is a bit of patience needed, and yeah, I think he's getting that. I spoke to Ruben Neves after the game. He turned around and said that in the 3 weeks they've had with their new head coach, there is a feeling that they're moving with something starting to slowly build. But obviously, it's going to take time, isn't it? Were they convincing? I don't know. I think 2-0 is a very, very good scoreline for them. And naturally, there's plenty of jubilation. I saw Simone Inzaghi and his coaching staff punching their fists as they ran down the touchline following that 95th minute Marcos Leonardo goal. But otherwise, there wasn't really much to shout about, and there hasn't really been much to shout about. One goal in their first 2 games, that Salzburg 0-0, was very, very frustrating for them, and you could see that from the players. And they knew there was a job to be done tonight. They went out, they were professional. I'd say they were diligent in their work, in what they did. Bear in mind, this is a club after that 1-0 draw with Real Madrid where people believed maybe they could go on and win it. They could surprise some of the big names and really sort of flex their muscle and show what they can do. However, we know this side is built around Alexander Mitrovic, the Serbian marksman, big unit of a player. He was missed at Fulham when he left. He's missed now. Now he's out of the team through injury. He travels around with them everywhere, maybe just for a bit of sort of camaraderie, motivation in the dressing room. But it's kind of like, you know, they're getting there, Al-Hilal. I don't think everyone's fully convinced yet that this is a side that's going to go out and absolutely dominate Manchester City. You saw the amount of possession that Pachuca had tonight. And although there were no clear-cut chances, Pachuca still looked dangerous when they moved forward. I think there's a lesson to be learned there as they head into the round of 16.
And so I'm kind of getting the feeling that you're sort of suggesting that there still might be sort of gears to go through, levels to hit, because in terms of that group, you know, 2 European sides in there, which you would imagine you thought they would probably have a strong chance of getting through, but they have got past them. Do you think there is another level? How far can they go in this competition? Come on, Aaron, give us a prediction.
By Manchester City. This is Pep Guardiola's Manchester City who are back. That's what an article I read earlier on today. Look, this Al-Hilal side, if they concentrate, they focus on what they're good at, and if they carry on putting these blocks into place, they can do something here. But again, we must remember this is a manager in Simone Inzaghi who under a month ago lost the European Cup final to Paris Saint-Germain, and it wasn't a loss; it was a beating, a full-on dismantling. And he's come into this team, this side Al-Hilal, and I wonder if he's mentally refreshed and ready for a competition as intense as the Club World Cup. He looks calm. He celebrates with his team. I think there's also that element of he's still trying to work his way around. He's not in Saudi Arabia at the moment. He's in the USA. They're on tour. They're around and about. There's no sort of familiarity. There's no home comforts, if you like. He's on tour, Simone Inzaghi, and so this will be a work in progress. Would I be surprised if they were knocked out by Manchester City? Probably not. But I still think there's plenty to come from this Al-Hilal side, and no doubt they will reinforce when given the opportunity.
OK, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Speaking of the round of 16 then, let's have a look at those matchups. We're going to have a little sort of set of predictions now, see what the boys are saying here. Let's start on the right-hand side. PSG against Inter Miami. I'll go to you one at a time. Liez, PSG against Miami. Messi magic, any chance?
I would love it. I would bring a Miami jersey too, but I think PSG have too much for them.
OK, Flamengo against Bayern Munich. Cormac, what are you thinking?
You know what? I'm going to say Flamengo. I've really enjoyed watching them, yeah.
Ooh.
They're going to be the surprise.
Wow.
OK, Jules, Real Madrid against Juventus. Great tie.
Well, we saw tonight, great tie, but I can't see Juventus, even with the return of their main players and starters, being able to disturb this Real Madrid side.
Absolutely, a gentle purr coming from Real Madrid there. Borussia Dortmund against Monterrey. Jules refuses to believe in Monterrey.
I refuse to believe.
Do you know what? Sadly, I do as well. Sadly, but yeah, there's quite a few games coming up. If we could just quickly see the other side, we'll do it really, really quickly when it comes to that graphic, because we've only done half of them. If we could see it. So on the left-hand side, we'll go quick. Inter Milan, Fluminense, Lias.
Inter.
OK. Man City versus Al-Hilal.
It has to be Man City.
We've got Palmeiras against Botafogo, Jules.
Palmeiras,
really?
OK, and Benfica against Chelsea. I'm a QPR fan, so I'm going to go with Benfica.
What?
OK, team of the tournament. We've put together our team of the tournament. We're going to run through it right now. Let's go through the goalkeeper and the defenders. I'll take those. Oscar Ustari is our goalkeeper. 14 saves in the competition for Miami. He's going to have a big one as well in that next game. We've got a back four of Hakimi, Sergio Ramos, who's got 9 tackles and interceptions per 90 at the moment, Jair Cunha of Botafogo, and Jules is Piqueres in midfield. Jorginho, who's been fantastic, hasn't he, Paul?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Jorginho. Flamengo are a team that kind of look like Arsenal in their principles and the way they move the ball. So I think Jorginho's really at home in this system.
Yeah, we've spoken about Joe Bellingham a lot. He makes it into our team. Bit unlucky for Jude not to get in there.
Yeah, probably a little bit. And your boy Allende, who we love from Mamelodi.
I absolutely adore Allende. 2 Allende's, he's definitely my favourite, sadly. And then Lias talks of Michael Elise. He's got the most goals and assists in the competition. He's been fantastic, hasn't he?
He's my player of the tournament so far. Honestly, the swagger that this kid is playing with right now, the technique, the flair, the goals, the assists, he seems to be the guy at Bayern Munich, right now. I'm loving him.
Abu Ali with that hat-trick, and our player of the tournament, you saw him highlighted there, Yildiz. He's been superb, hasn't he, Jules?
Yeah, incredible. We saw him again. They missed him massively today, that he was rested and on the bench, but even when he came on, he made a massive difference.
Yes. Well, what a night. that was. Let's have a look at the socials one last time before we go. Lots of love for Real Madrid players. Arda Güler, Jude and Trent getting lots of love as well. Tchouameni as well. Some people spotting the change in system there. It's a good time to be a Real Madrid fan. You know, a lot of them talking about suffering. I'm not sure there's much suffering going on there. But yeah, a great result for them, and they make it their way through. Stop that, Trent. See that? That was the back pass. It was very, very good. So this is what's coming up on DAZN. We've got ourselves a host of live boxing across the DAZN platform in the coming weeks, featuring some of the biggest sports names and the brightest talents and the best fighters too. And then to the football, we've got Palmeiras versus Botafogo. These are the first 4 games of that round of 16. So Palmeiras versus Botafogo, Saturday at 5 p.m. Benfica up against Chelsea at 9 p.m. And we've got the press at 4:30, of course. Make sure you join us. We are so excited to get into the round of 16 knockout matches. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Huge thank you to our guests. Great stuff once again. Amazing stuff. So that is all for today from the press. We'll see you again tomorrow here on the DAZN app.